Will high technology ever beat the violin maker in making great sounding instruments? Today, we talk with a very high qualified person who made it his mission to work his life since the 70s with the CNC routers to create great sounding instruments for an affordable price. Stay tuned and make up your minds. Here we are in my workshop in Cremona, and this is John Kirk. I got to know him actually better the first time last year when he showed up. He told me that he's doing some final upgrading in violin making here in Cremona at the Accademia Cremonensis, which is actually, if you can afford it, a great way.
Yes.
It costs a lot, and it costs more than my online academy.
I know, but living in Italy is fun.
It's fun, it's of course. Then you have good food and all this, and you live Cremona if you can afford it. His whole life was actually around the cello, right?
Yes, I'm a cellist. I have a master's degree from Boston University. I did European study with Nadia Boulanger, and then I moved back to the United States, and I decided I did not want to live in a big city anymore.
Okay, so you'll move to the countryside.
Right, so there in Montana, I knew I needed a better cello, and I didn't have the money to buy it. So I thought, well, I guess I have to make the thing myself.
Okay.
So I went to the mountains and I cut down a spruce tree, an Engelmann spruce tree.
That's the long
Right. And then I apprenticed myself to a man who had already been through the Salt Lake City violin-making school. And he made a Montagnana model, and I made mine. His looked beautiful. It didn't sound very good. Mine sounded great, but it looked like a gorilla had made it. So I realized that maybe I have some talent for the sound, and it was going to be a long time before I would make up my skills. And my brother, who's a mechanical engineer, said, you know, you can do this with a CNC router. And I said,
What year are we talking about?
1979.
1979, he talked about CNC router. At least I have never heard about that.
It was developed after the space shuttle from the moon.
Okay.
That's why it was developed.
CNC, what does it stand for?
Computer numerical control. If you can draw it, you can cut it. It's an X, Y, and Z.
Okay. When I heard the first time about CNC, that was at least, let's say, I would say like 20 or 15 years ago. Before I came to this workshop before, nobody here ever talked about it. And I thought it's much, much younger than since 1979 already in America.
So back then, in 1979, my brother's company, he's a mechanical engineer. I studied mechanical engineering for 3.5 years before I ran off to be a cellist. I had some background in it. And his company was making controllers that would attach to existing machines, lathe, mill, router systems.
Okay.
And he helped me build our first machine. We made our first machine with Thomson round waves, stepper motors, and I-beams.
Okay.
Maple tables.
Okay, there are now already a few things which I do not understand anymore, but I just saw he showed me already. He has his building, his shop, and then next to it, a little bit away, there is this machine inside and your workshop.
So I built the first machine, but then technology advanced. Things were more easy to program. I had to write my first copying program from scratch, and with some help from other computer geeks. But then I purchased a machine that has a table on it that is 8 feet by 4 feet by 18 inches in Z.
In feet, 12 feet, that's about 2-3 meters?
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty big, right?
That's about 3.5 meters. So, and the machine changes its own tool and it cuts within 1/10,000th of an inch.
Wow. Within 1/10,000th, okay. So this is super precise.
It is. Mostly it's repeatable. And of course, you know, if you breathe in the same room as a piece of wood, it changes size.
Of course, yes, because it takes humidity, okay.
Right.
At that point, of course, in violin making, this is something completely, how should I say?
Foreign?
not foreign. This is not true because actually most of the instruments worldwide are actually already made by CNC. Just most people don't know it. Every time you make something, a machine like this can do it exactly the same way, right?
It's very repeatable.
That's the key point. And that's actually where I also wanted to immediately clear out certain things here. Violin making, how I do it, is a craftsman handcraftship, and you have to learn it. And I always tell people there is no shortcut. And indeed, I believe that a CNC machinery cannot create new violin makers in a quicker time. This is the point. But CNC has to be accepted nowadays because as soon as you take a fingerboard, let's say, these fingerboards, they cannot sell you a piece of wood. That's not allowed from this country where the ebony comes from, so they have to work on it roughly. So all the fingerboards, for instance, are already made with a CNC machine. Or just to explain it to people before they say, nah, I don't know a CNC machine. Every single violin peg on every instrument, since you need already 4 and you want them 4 to look the same, are very likely made with CNC router. Then I'm the first one who loves the pegs from Les Bois d'Harmonie from France, where you pay them like 2,000 euro, but only few people are willing to pay that money to have 4 different pegs, more or less the same, handcrafted by Eric Folly. As soon as you say you want it handmade, cost goes up. That's very important. That's why our instruments cost so much.
So let me be very clear about CNC work. I use my CNC as my apprentice. The only problem with this apprentice is that it does do what you tell it to do.
Okay.
So it's garbage in, garbage out.
Garbage in.
Yeah, it's a very common term in the computer language. But I decided to live in Montana. I wanted to live where the price is going to be a certain amount.
Yeah.
And my mission from the beginning was beautiful sound at an affordable price. So I know full well this level of instrument, the way this is cut, cannot compete with the hand making. I accepted that from the very beginning. And the reason it can't is because at the very last, I don't flex the instrument. I take it the way it has been made inside and out, and I glue it onto the rib structure, and unless there's some difficulty with a certain section, I don't change it.
So this one here is all made with your system, right?
Yes.
With your machinery.
It goes this way, and then this way, and then this way, and then this way. And each time it moves that way, it moves over 0.3 of a millimeter, or 0.015 of an inch. And so there are many passes, and it rounds over the edge. It does that. Of course, you have to do this part of the edge by hand.
Yeah.
And so this helps me make a higher level cello. I can compete with China and still make a higher level cello. First of all, you have the beginning instrument for people. You know, it's some Chinese instrument, and then he moves into a German instrument for a step up, and then right, and then you step into an instrument in the white that I've varnished and set up. That's a little higher, and then this.
Okay.
But after this comes you. There's no way I can produce what you do.
A master cello.
And I cannot, because I'm not here with my instincts feeling all the things that need to be felt and can be felt with years of experience. I'm not trying to be nice. It's just true. To put my money where my mouth is, I bought one of Min's cellos last year.
Yes.
Because there's no way
And you didn't sell it because you love it that much.
Right. And so, because I know that I could not make that level cello. I might be able to copy it.
Yeah.
I should bring you a copy.
When you come to Cremona and go to the Academia Cremonensis, what do you learn?
I learned more about thicknessing. I learned more about bass bar placement. I learned more about F-hole placement and F-hole design. I learned a lot about antique varnishing in oil. And I learned a lot about where the best restaurants are.
The best restaurant? Which one is your favorite?
Probably La Sosta.
La Sosta, okay. You like that.
It's 100 steps from where I live.
Okay. And once you finished it like this, you inside you leave it like this when you make your instruments?
This was made for Cremona, so normally I have the F-holes cut already. I didn't do that because I wanted to be able to cut F-holes.
Yeah.
I brought 2 tops and 2 backs, and I did the other one. I did the F-holes. And normally this comes out to the edge, so here. So I made this thicker so that I could learn more about thicknessy.
Okay.
So normally I don't do that. So no, it's pretty much done. Interesting thing was that when I was finally given the thicknessing from academia, those are the ones that I use.
Really?
Yes. So,
Because that's actually the key point. A master can only give you a certain concept of thicknesses, which are in all books already written and measured and everything.
Right.
But then from the outside to the inside and whatever, where, what, that's something you start to learn. This is really very thick. I don't know how much it is, probably 8. Then you have to make it, and then you start juggling and trying and doing, and then it depends on the kind of model and things like this. But you learn a little bit more about how to put the thicknesses here in it.
I did.
Or you did.
I did learn where, how, and where. Yes, and the pattern, and I achieved that. I did not achieve it as smooth as this with my skills, but I did achieve it. I'll go home and reprogram and put this on the machine and then make it all smooth, because I'm really good at programming.
I'm everything else than good on the computer itself.
So when I was first making an instrument and I was doing it by hand, as I said to you before, the physical effort that it required, the romance left very fast. And I was not interested in doing this. And when my brother suggested that I could do this with this method, I never looked back.
Okay, you're just straightforward. Okay.
Yeah, because I knew it would help me do the things that I needed to do to fulfill my interest in living in Montana, fit into a certain price range, and offer a certain amount of sound before people needed to come to somebody like you. And I accepted that. And I'm not trying to be nice. It's just really the way it is. There's never going to be a way to produce an instrument at your level with this. Well, let's see, the Betz Strad was copied with a scanner.
Yeah.
Right. And they made 6 or 8 copies and sent them the parts to different luthiers in the United States. And I went to the VSA convention and I saw the Betz Strad and I played it. I play it cello style, but it worked. Just sounded like a Chinese instrument because measurements are not everything. You already know that. I'm preaching to the choir. But they're at a certain level, this works.
Just to explain a little bit what the point is. From when I listen to all these things, I just always think, a musician is listening to that and what are they talking about? I have here, Marco wanted already that we rough out this arching. This was actually this morning still a square piece of wood. He put it on the ribs, signed the outline, signed the edge, everything, and then cuts it out with the bandsaw. And then you have a rough, thick piece. You can hear it's like a chopping board, yeah? The maple, and this is the spruce, which is jointed in the middle with 2 pieces and then jointed, and the same thing. You rough it out, you make the edge, you make the arching from the outside, then you work along the side, you cut the channel, you put the purfling in, and sooner or later you will be becoming, this here's now an old piece of a 48,000-year-old back and still have to carve it inside. But you work outside until everything is nice, then you clean it all with the scraper, and then you start roughing it out inside. You make the thicknesses with you have some general measurements in the very beginning. You make like 6, 5, 4. Then it's still very heavy, and then you go slower, you go down. You have like this caliper to work with this one, how I showed in my previous video. And then at a certain point, you have already cleaned all that up. Violin makers have their students, and also I have like Stefano and Marco, and they work for me. And now when they rough me out this outside from that violin and I have to build that violin, the more they go on with this one and the less time I have to work myself, the less chance I have to capture the right combination of arching, thickness and everything of that violin. So I can get things done pretty quick because we're lots of people working, but the more I give to others, the less I know what I have to do. Now, after 30, 40 years actually of violin making, I certainly could take now John's pieces and say, John, I make you nice sounding cello out of it, yeah? But I did that already in the past. Besides that, you're always tempted by others coming in, dropping in, and they try to get your instrument with your label. That was probably most of the times the most important ingredient, and they want to pay less, but they give it like this and all these kind of things. It never really worked that great, you know? There is something at a certain point where you cannot describe it anymore, but there is at a certain step, and we're talking probably about the last 3 or 4% of the entire sound potential which is available to get these last grades.
Because there's knowledge in your touch.
There's knowledge in your touch, and you even myself, I cannot explain it. It's
yes
just
or no.
Yeah, it's just you take it and you say, I would have done it like that, you know. Why did he do like this? Why didn't he change this here? Or whatever, you know? And that's probably the reason that instruments are so high priced at a certain stage. And other violin makers who work in that same level of violin making take your instrument and immediately understand what you have done and at what point you are.
You know, there's a difference and a contrast between the amount of time put in to an instrument from the beginning to where it's ready for you and when it's ready for me. This takes 2.25 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes to get here with the pulls, the purfling, the round over, and another 20 minutes for the inside to be cut out. So that's a big advantage. The disadvantage is that the investment into the machine comes all at once at the very beginning. With you, your investment into your workers comes a little bit along the way. Mm-hmm. It's just different ways of doing it. But this method will never reach this. It will only stay in this area. But I was happy with that.
So you mean I don't have to worry?
No, you don't have to worry at all, and neither do I.
Okay. Yes. But it's a very interesting and sparkling subject. Cremona is a very, let's say, coming to the CNC was, I think, a very underdeveloped area. You told me something about a violin making meeting in America where they have like...
Yes, there were a lot of people who were wanting to do it, but we had a whole room full of violin makers who wanted to know more about CNC. And there were a group of forum, and only 3 other people who were willing to divulge the fact that we used CNC. I know it's in if I was back another 20 years, I would come and knew what I knew about Cremona. I would come here and open a CNC shop. I would just be not secretive about it at all, just say it. I would receive people by secret through a door and disguise, and I would take their orders and I would make their to whatever level they wanted it finished, and have them delivered by couriers so that nobody knew it was happening. But it would increase your ability to for volume. And if you used your pattern and your wood, it would do it more quickly, and you could do it faster. Then you could hire even more employees and meet the demands that you have. I don't know if it's time for you to invest into a machine, but if you do, I could help you not make the wrong mistakes.
Okay, I guess there's a lot to learn.
It's very logical if you know what's going on, but it takes a while to learn it. I learned a lot by making my own machine with the help of my brother. You don't have to do it because you don't have to.
No, where it's getting interesting is if you can have the original, let's say, arching of a Guarnieri or whatever, then it gets, I have to admit, then it gets sparkling and interesting. But at the same time, a little bit anxious.
I did have the chance to actually digitize an actual Stradivari 1711. I did it over a weekend, and I made a number of instruments. And it doesn't sound like a Strad, but it sounds very much like one. At a certain price point, it is quite worth it. The people who are wanting your instruments have already been through all the other levels of instruments. They're either a wealthy retired person, or they're looking for a professional instrument, and the costs of Guarnieri or Stradivari or any of the other Italian instruments that anybody would want to use or could use in an orchestra for a job are just out of reach. So yours are very competitive in terms of sound, and the musician is looking for the amount of sound for the amount of dollars. That's what they're after. Mm-hmm. Yes, it has to look a certain way, but certainly they all look like a violin, none like the Chinese stuff that looks, we call them VSOs, violin-shaped objects.
VSO, violin-shaped
looks like a violin from a distance.
Now that you got to know a little bit violin making and what it is about, and this additional time factor to make a certain quality, your way of doing it at a high quality to an affordable price. And before you were a musician, where do you feel positioned right now, you yourself? Do you feel more like a maker or more like a musician who is always checking how it sounds?
I have to do both. In the long run, my customers are musicians. You know, we all know that violinists hear with their eyes, and cellists just care about the sound.
Okay.
In general.
I like this.
Yes. And in general, I usually make things in groups of 3. And if I tried something new each time, for 3, if 2 of them sound good that way, I keep the idea, and if not, I don't do it.
Okay.
So I'm always moving ahead with small things. And you know, the last 3% is where the good stuff happens.
That's true, yeah.
So I'm always looking for new things to do, but my baseline is here.
To close this sparkling, from my point of view, a sparkling discussion, others said, oh, is this good for you, Edgar? You will tell me if this was good. Now, for me, I think it's a very interesting subject because it points out exactly the difference of what we do and what others do to obtain affordable price. So his instruments, probably, I would be very curious to hear and to see them and give some advice with a ready-made instrument, you know, because then you have everything. To me, it sounds, or it seems interesting, and I think it's that you had a success with it is more than clear. And I think this is interesting. Very good. I think we said everything. So what's next? Are you coming back to Cremona to learn even next year?
I would like to come back. I don't know what I'll decide that I feel like I need to fill in the gaps. I'm not really sure. I have to look to see how well I do at remembering all the stuff I learned with varnish.
I think there was very good discussion here. I hope you enjoyed everything here. You are already subscribed, otherwise stop watching my channel. Yeah, because come on, time is money, as you know. Yeah,
right.
So this is very sparkling and interesting things. Thank you for your time, because this is not obvious, and that's the most precious thing we have. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward for the next time you come.
Thank you, me too.
And you have to bring a ready-made instrument of yours.
All right.
And then we do the sound adjustment together.
A ready-made copy of Min's cello.
Really?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe, so he's working on it, huh? Very good. So you have to put a like on it, so when John is coming back with his own made cello copy of the Mina Mazzolari Sleeping Beauty, then we make a comparison. But you have to put the like on it. But first of all, of course, we will sound adjust it as its maximum by Edgar, and then we make the comparison. But put the like. Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Ciao, ciao.
Right.
Bye, John.
Bye.